US, they will talk about this. They will always talk about visa and status and green card. So, in fact, I would
Okay,
say,
right.
what was that? I hear some noise at the back end. Is it, can you guys, if possible, can you guys mute?
No, no, it's our engineer
Oh,
coming.
okay, okay. So, so you should ask your friends, like, and of course, it's very sad story because, like, after what happened with COVID-19, I hear in the news a couple of days back that around 200,000 um, Indians who basically went for H-1B visa are going to have their status rejected by June because of all this COVID-19 issue. And it's a very like terrible story. And like if you live through it, you know exactly what's happening. So it's like your entire job is basically your entire like status, like your legality of staying in a country is tied to your visa and your employer. So there is no way you can start your own business, or there is no way. It's very difficult to change job because of the scenario right there. And definitely, um, they take you in. The system is designed in such a way so that you are always in debt. Like for example, it's not so difficult to buy a house, it's not so difficult to buy a car. So, and but once you basically paid off your car and a house, they sell you a bigger car and a bigger house. So they make sure you're always under debt for like your entire career. And of course, you feel like you're basically running on a treadmill, where like you are just one accident away or one health issue away from being bankrupt or being out of status, or you just one conversation with your manager which basically didn't go well, and your entire like legality of staying in your country in that country becomes very difficult. So really, I mean, not so things basically based on my experience really hit me home was when one time so I basically worked for a company, worked for a project, in fact, uh, in Houston. So this was like an oil and gas company, and we had this like company parties every time where we basically have celebrate like project go live and things like that. So one time we went to a shrimp restaurant, and happens like um, the company that we work for happened to build those pipelines and those oil rigs, which basically burst during the Gulf oil spill crisis. I don't know if you guys remember a couple of years back. So that was like a huge devastation to the environment, and like lots of small businesses, especially like restaurant and family businesses, were ruined because of the oil spill. And it so happened that one of those company dinner, this shrimp companies, this shrimp restaurant, basically sued our company that we were working for, and because of all the damages that was basically done. And literally, we found out like the our company, which was basically throwing the party, literally refused to pay the bill. So we actually had to take a tab ourselves. So it's not about that particular party, but literally, I felt like I was working for the evil corporation at that time. I was on the wrong side of the what do you say, uh, of the aisle. Like I was working, I was part of the evil corporation, which was doing all this evil thing to the environment and basically hurting small businesses. So that's when I basically felt like, okay, exactly, is this the kind of life I really want to lead for the rest? And basically, I had to basically make a decision. And of course, there was another thing which was like related to my family itself. Like my wife is a dentist. She completed her MDS and everything, and spent like 8 years in India finishing her MDS. So literally, I took her for about 1 year into the US, and what they said was like you have to start all the way from the beginning. So she has to basically forget whatever she learned and start all the way from BDS again, and spend another maybe 200,000 just to be able to work again as a dentist. So that was also very discouraging. And after thinking through, we thought like, okay, it's not worth it. I mean, with all the issue, with like all the situations that we're facing, we thought like, okay, we'll basically try to build our own and go back to our own country, go back to India, and try to do something on our own and build our own business. So, uh, just give me 1 minute. Okay, sorry. Okay, so that's when we basically I had a crossroad in which I basically decided to leave the American dream and start my own gig. Basically took the plunge and left everything, whatever was in America, like basically uh, sold my vehicle and everything, and basically decided to come back to India. But after coming back to India, I basically did not want to work in another metro city anyway, because I still remember working in Bangalore for about 1 year when I came down for an assignment, and it took literally 2 hours for me to get to office. So I didn't want to start off that life again, going to office like 9 to 5, rushing during the rush hour, and basically trying to find a job in one of the big metro cities. So that was something that I didn't want to do myself. So basically, I decided to stay back in my hometown. But the big catch was that I've always worked in big companies, and I've always worked. My skill set was basically into like solving problems for big corporations. That's why my skill set was worthless. Like I don't know, we don't have any big companies, especially we are from Manipur, like northeastern part of India. There's nothing much. You don't find any big companies over here where you can basically do apply your skills. So literally, it took me like after 3 months. In fact, that's everything was okay. It was a little bit of adjustment initially. After 3 months, when my savings and everything ran out, and literally this was what I was basically feeling after 3 months. Like, what have I got myself into? No income coming in, no money coming in, and I didn't have any friends because I was basically out of my hometown for about 9 years or 10 years, and it was really like readjusting all over again to my hometown. And so really, basically, it was difficult, a very difficult period, a very difficult time. But after that, like soon after that, I started thinking more on what really is important in life. Really started thinking about what really is important. So, and of course, like it is like proven time and again now, like soon after this COVID issue, the you see like the job that you really love, like it's not that relevant anymore. I mean, nobody really cares about the economy right now. Everybody wants to save their life. And the oil, which was like one of the most precious commodities some time back, now is basically sold like on negative price. Like people are basically paying you to buy oil. So some of the things that we thought were important is not really important anymore. So what really important is like family and like what you really have with you. So that's when basically I had some awakening and thought like, okay, so I have to start figuring out, make the best of what I have, and be able to basically at least contribute something also to the society, and like do something which is different. And definitely, I mean, you literally realize like you don't really have to spend a lot of money. I mean, after coming back to my hometown, there was no eating outside, or there was no going to malls because we don't have any malls over here, and like movie theater and multiplexes. So my expenses basically went down so much, and I was literally, and of course, like you don't have to pay mortgages and the bills and everything anymore. So it's really surprising to see like how much less cash you can basically survive. So, but still, I wanted to like keep myself busy and make myself useful. That's when I basically started doing a lot of training programs and sessions. So I had this passion about doing like training programs from earlier days as well. Like way back in 2012 when I was doing internship in Google, we basically brought in an idea about like Google Map Maker. So it was initially the idea was like a crowdsourcing. People basically know more about their communities than outsiders. So it was like a platform that Google built basically to crowdsource information about localities, like a particular road or renaming a road or things like that. So we basically organized those session early on. And in fact, we organized the first session on Startup Weekend way back in 2014. So I don't know if you guys, some of you guys might be knowing it, but Startup Weekend is more like a global organization. It's like a global community of startup enthusiasts where normally you basically choose a weekend where over the end over the Friday you start talking about like business ideas, and you build a team around it. You start working over the idea over the weekend, and basically by the end of the weekend you basically pitch your business idea in front of a judge, and you come up with like an MVP, like a minimum viable product. So this was very exciting at that time. In fact, we were the first organization to basically organize such an event way back in 2014. And soon after that, many of the folks which participated in the first event, they took the idea forward and they started building their own communities later on. It started growing to a certain extent. So this was something that I was passionate about, so I started doing it. And basically, by the time I came around, luckily some of those guys who basically participated in the first event, they took this idea, and Manipur was also going to the path of entrepreneurial development. So literally in 2019, Manipur started. Maybe it's the only state, one of the only state in the northeastern part of India, which has its own startup scheme. So Startup Manipur basically started in 2019, where the government took like a massive initiative to support entrepreneurs and people with idea-based business ideas to basically launch their business. So we basically started partnering with local companies and as well as Manipur University and build the entire like core structure. So Nibiaa Consultancy was involved in building the entire core structure for the first phase of the startup Manipur, and the program was organized. It's been the second year now, so they started in 2019, and close to 500 plus business ideas and entrepreneurs were supported. So it was like a 3 months course where we would basically tell these startups about the idea of starting of how do you pitch in front of an entrepreneur, how do you come up with a business plan, or how do you do like a market analysis and things like that. So what is an MVP and the basic concepts like that. So the 3 months course was pretty rigorous. We had experts on multiple lines which we will be bringing on board, and they will be sharing their ideas and how do you register a company and things like that. So literally it took off from there. So like in fact it's very, so we also were also very actively involved in the startup yatra in partnership with the startup India scheme. So literally we went to about like 10 to 15 different colleges across the state, in both in the hill area as well as in the plain area, and organized these events all across the state. And like things started happening in Manipur. So in fact, like if you see some of these press releases, like Manipur is right now one of the top state in northeastern region in terms of MSME business registration. And there was like a coverage in the Yo story that Manipur is becoming one of the new startup playground in northeast India. And recently, the event called NERES, which is Northeastern Regional Entrepreneurship Summit, it's still going on. So the most surprising part was if you look at the idea phase form submission for different states, we being we basically even succeeded Assam, even if we have a very small population. Assam had like 234 idea submission. Manipur basically had around 272. And compared to other northeastern states, we are basically, a lot of things are happening in Manipur. A lot of things are basically like people have lots of like, even if we do not have big startup over here, but there are so many food production companies and food processing and like IT based companies are also coming up. So things started happening. So we are very proud in the sense, like in fact, we uh, did like a small contribution from our side to be able to basically build this ecosystem in our region. And definitely it was a very fulfilling experience, trying to help the community and trying to bring about some change. Definitely there were so many other players involved, but we also had a small part in basically bringing this change in our environment. So that is completely fine, like helping the community and everything is fine, but you still have to make some money. Like, where do you basically find the money? Where is the money? So, we still do like all the trainings and everything, but really, one of the things that I always had in my mind was like, definitely in order to basically grow, in order to be relevant in the 21st century, you have to take up or you have to pick up at least one of the emerging technologies. Like it can be big data, Internet of Things, AI, and machine learning, and all these things. You have to basically pick up one of this technology in order to stay relevant for maybe the next 10 years or so. And the big challenge is like what sort of technology do you basically you basically choose, and the technology which is relevant for your locality. You're talking about implementing like advanced technology in a rural area, in an isolated area where there is connectivity issue, where there is internet issue, and Internet of Things without internet is not going to work, right? So things like that were a lot of challenges, but still we basically started thinking like, what can we basically do? How could we basically help the local businesses and local farmers? So that's when we basically started doing more research and found out a particular technology called LP1, which stands for low power wide area network. So LP1 technology is very relevant, especially for isolated locations, where if you basically look at the chart on the left-hand side, so you have the basic advantage of LP1 technologies in terms of range. Like if you compare with local area network, like you might know about Zigbee and Wi-Fi and Bluetooth and things like that. So you have the capacity of transferring huge volume of data up to 100 Mbps, but the range is short. Like you're talking about few meters. There's no question of like battery life. Of course, like battery life is going to be a big issue there, and also the cost of the products are going to be very high. And there's, if you look at the right hand side, the other technology about connectivity is cellular. So not every part, any location in Northeast India is connected by cellular technology. So cellular is fine. It has long range. It has a medium battery life and everything, but not every area is connected. So the best thing which basically worked was something called LP1. LP1 technology. If you look at the right hand side of the slide, so the x-axis is the range and the y is the bandwidth. So LP1 technology basically lies at the lower bottom end of this particular graph, which is about range. The range we are talking about 5 to 10 kilometers. So imagine you basically put in like a router in the on a higher tower in the middle of a city. You can basically get this signal on a node that you basically put in a farm around 10 kilometers away from your tower. The range is so amazing that without using cellular or anything, you're basically building a network of your own. Then talking about battery life, we're talking about battery life. You're not talking about powering the nodes with the help of AC current. We're talking about battery, and this batteries basically last for about 5 years or 6 years. And the cost of these particular devices are very low compared to the other two options. But the only downside is you cannot send like huge volume of data. I mean, you cannot watch video stream or you cannot start doing like watching videos and things like that, but it is very effective for sending sensor related data. Sensor data do not have like much of a bandwidth. It's like we are talking about kilobytes, but still you're able to send this data even if the range is like 7 to 8 kilometers and the battery life of the product is about like 5 to 6 years. So this particular technology was very ideal for a situation like ours where you have connectivity issue and everything. So we started working on this technology more deeper, and we realized like there are so many use cases we can basically, so many problems we can solve with this technology. And while we were doing this particular exercises, we basically came across this farmer, and through a friend and a relative of ours. So the farmer, you see the picture on the right hand side. So he's a local fish farmer in Manipur, and he's one of those guys who is enthusiastic about bringing in technology to his fish farming in order to increase his yield, the yield and quality of the product. So, he mentioned one time, like, okay, and I was really surprised. Like, this guy basically owns like huge acres of farms, and he makes more money. He made more money than I myself working in corporate America for a year. So he made more money in a year than I ever made in America working for corporate. That's when I thought like, okay, there is money in rural India. I mean, you cannot just say like, okay, if you're talking about building a startup or building a business, you don't always have to go to like the big metro cities and start trying to build another platform-based or e-commerce based startup. You can basically start looking at rural India. There's a lot of money to be made out there. So literally, this guy basically brought in some oxidation pump. So the oxidation pump, for those guys who don't know much about fishing, even I was very new when I basically heard about this. Like, fish normally do like they need a lot of oxygen. Normally at around 2 a.m. to like 5 a.m. in the morning. That's when they are most active. And this farmer actually brought in the underwater submergible pumps, which would be blowing air inside his farms. And literally, he was waking up at 2 a.m. every morning, switching on the pump, and basically go back to sleep at 5. And again at 5 a.m. in the morning, he would basically come out and switch off. So for him, he was lucky. His house was not very far away from his farm, but still around 200 to 300 meters. But he was doing this every single day, like disrupting his sleep and everything. Yeah, then we thought like, oh, this is a very simple solution we can basically come up with. We put in like an IO device on his particular pump, and we were able to switch on and off the device remotely from his mobile phone. And he was so much impressed by it. Next day, he was talking about, okay, I have this issue with my water quality. My water quality is very critical for my fish growth. For example, if you have something like higher volume of ammonia in your water, it will lead to like fish dying off. So literally his entire yield for a season depends on quality of his water. So we basically said like, what can you do with it? So we said, okay, we can build you a device which will basically measure your water quality, like the pH or the ammonia content or things like that, and you will be able to remotely see like how is your water quality at the beginning of the day or at night and things like that. So he was so impressed. No purchase order, no invoicing, no nothing like that. No running after the client for money. He just gave us the money and said like, build something for me, and if you basically make it successful, I have 200 other farmers in my network who are ready to buy your product. That's the kind of scope we are talking about. Like there is people who is basically trying to solve problems, like local problems, trying to figure out a solution for the local problems, right? So how do you come up with some innovative technology and try to find a solution? So this was one success story where we are working on basically implementing in 5 to 6 other farms with the same like water quality measurement and remote like farm off on solutions. A very not very complicated solution for an IoT device. And after that, soon after that, this guy basically had a friend who was working as a superintendent in PhD in Manipur, and he told him about this idea about testing water quality in his water supply. And definitely, like water supply is still a big challenge in a small town like Manipur. There were three challenges that they really wanted to solve. One of them was the periodicity of water supply, which was never accurate. Like it was some person switching on and switching off the pump, and some people would get it or not get it. The other thing is the water quantity. There is no know exactly like how much water is there in the tank, because there is like processing tank, there is a tank which, from where you do the distribution and all those things. So they wanted to see like how much water is there in the distribution tank so that they will be able to transfer the next day or next day after tomorrow. And the third and the most important factor was the water quality. So water quality checking was not done in any way, whether it was like uh, the quality of the water was good for drinking and things like that. There was no checking. They were doing like physical check, which was not very accurate. So they told us about this situation and we came up with a plan, like how do you basically do all these things? How do you automate it? How do you make it work using IoT applications? So we came up with a solution by which we gave them like a dashboard. We put in some sensors on the pump, for example, the pump which was basically pulling in water from the river. Also, we put in some sensors on this particular tank where we measured the water quality and we came out with a solution for using ultrasonic sensor to measure the water volume also. And of course, like the metering for different household, like how much quantity of water is basically going in. So this is like a pilot project that we're working on. Currently, we're working in London water supply under the leadership of PhD superintendent engineer. And we gave him a solution for this particular dashboard where literally from his office in PhD Meadow, he will be able to monitor a particular water station and see like what is the pH value. NTU stands for turbidity, so how much of dirt or murkiness we have in the water, and even temperature. And there are more sensors we can basically put in here. It'll be more of a centralized device management solution where from one particular central location, you'll be able to monitor all these different water supply. You can do like analytics and reporting on top of it, where you can do like predict like future water requirement, like in the summer, what is the peak requirement and what will be the requirement in the winters. And definitely, we are also putting in end user management pages as well, where the individual household and which are receiving the water, they will be able to see how much water they are consuming. So in fact, like monitoring, control, optimization, and autonomy, that's a kind of technology application we did on this pilot project. So if this pilot project is successful, then we'll be implementing the solution all across the water supply region in the Uthal municipality area. So this is also another big project. I'm not like saying like, so the reason I really wanted to emphasize is like there is solutions to be, there's lots of things to be solved. There's lots of problems to be solved in the local region, local area. And if you basically come up with like an innovative solution, you can always find out ways to generate revenue. So this is one. Another one is with MSPDCL. Definitely, this is one great story, success story for Manipur as well. Manipur is maybe one of the only state in northeastern region which has successfully implemented like prepaid water metering solution. And the most interesting part was we had this issue of load shedding for a very long period of time. We used to receive around 3 to 4 hours of electricity in a year, I mean, in a day. And so this IS officer is a retired IS officer now. He visited one of the expo in Singapore, and that's when he came across this technology of prepaid water metering. So he decided to come back and basically force the government to implement this technology. And it was a huge issue initially, but now, like if you ask anybody in Manipur, in fact, we have close to 24-hour electricity supply. I mean, even better than Delhi. So that was only possible because one guy took the initiative and brought in some technologies which were like transformative, which are applicable. Right, and the funny thing, how we are related to this is like two of the engineers that I basically interacted with from NIT, they got like an internship job in MSPDCL where they were supposed to go to a different household and basically read this meter reading, because these meters are old-fashioned meters. Still, they are pretty advanced compared to other meters which are there, but still you cannot remotely do the remote reading of meters. And we have a solution in our technology where you can do like remote reading from electricity meters as well. So this was something that we were also talking with the MSPDCL folks that we can literally basically put this device on all the meters where they would be able to remotely monitor and read the metering of this prepaid meter. So this is still a work in progress. We haven't like finalized anything on this one, and definitely soon after this, we also had another conversation in which we talked about the cost benefit analysis for Imphal municipality area, and then we did like a cost benefit analysis in terms of electricity bill being paid by the government to MSPDCL for all the electricity bulbs, and we found out like they pay close to like 96 lakhs a year, and we basically gave them like a solution by which they will be able to save close to 25 lakh 24 lakhs a year using smart solutions. So how did we plan to do it? So the kind of idea we presented them was, so especially like small town like Manipur, I am sure it's pretty similar to some of your small town. Like around 7:11 p.m. at night, there is no traffic at all. I mean, the traffic basically dies out at 11 p.m. So starting 11 to like 4 a.m. in the morning, if you literally reduce the lumen or the brightness of the LED bulb by 50%, you save around 24 lakhs in a year in terms of electricity bill. That's like 30 to 60% saving on electricity bill. We did this simulation, we did this calculation and everything. And we showed them how much money they can basically save by putting our smart solution. And we are also in talks with the smart city Manipur, Imphal smart city as well, about bringing this technology so that they can basically elongate the life of the LEDs of the street lamps, at the same time be able to save a lot of money in terms of cost. So we're planning to do a pilot project on about 10 poles on this particular thing. So this is another project they are working on. And the other solution is with the flood monitoring solution. So literally, like northeastern part of India, any other state, we have this issue of flash flood, which is like small river banks basically flooding off at any moment without prior warning. So how can we basically monitor this? So if you use the same technology, we can do like sensors. We can put in sensors on bridges by which we can measure the level of water, the water rise level. Normally there is like a marking on the bridges which basically indicates manually like how much if the water level is going above the danger mark. But definitely you cannot have a solution. You do not really have a solution right now in which you can basically measure the actual real-time water level monitoring in different bridges. So that's when we basically connected with this company based out of UK, and they gave us this solution where they mentioned like, okay, you'll be able to real-time monitor. And this is like a community project. Like for example, if there's flash flooding, like every single locality in the area, every single locality is going to be flooded. There's going to be lots of properties being wasted, lives will be basically in jeopardized when flooding occurs. So once you have like an early warning system where we can basically give it to the locality, okay, this is the time when we are. So if you basically bring in data from the weather station and bring in data from the rainfall and put those analytics data and compare it with the water level rise, you can really predict like at what time of the day this particular bridge will break or this particular water will overflow. So if you give this early warning system to any of the localities, small villages or small locality, you literally have a lot of chance in terms of protecting the banks or basically giving an early warning will help in them in evacuation process or things like that. And this also is part of the technology that we're planning to implement. And definitely, we're talking with the flood control department for implementation of this technology. But it doesn't also mean that you always have to go to the government to find out, like, to get some fund for some of these projects. There are alternative sources of community project funding. So, for example, I really we had like I participated in one of the event which basically was about like on the entrepreneurs and how the governments and entrepreneurs can basically cooperate with each other. In one of the event it was mentioned that like there are some villages, some areas in which the farmers have basically raised a community fund and they don't know how to use that money. And we're not talking about huge investment. We're talking about like this particular machine will cost maximum 50,000 rupees to implement, and in terms of all the machinery and the software and everything included. So you can basically try to get those money from community fund, where different communities have raised some money to basically use it for community purposes. So this would be a very good implementation project for them. Or you can basically help with the local area, like MP local area fund development schemes are there. And of course, the panchayat itself, there's a lot of money in the panchayat Raj that nobody is basically looking into. And they have a huge cash flow money which they can basically implement on local projects. So once you're able to generalize and maybe basically convince the local communities in your community, in those areas, to basically implement such technology which might be able to help them in the case of a disaster, give like an early warning solution, I think it will be something that you'll be able to set. So definitely, like not just in our area, like any area in any part of the country, such projects can be initiated. And we are not basically looking at this source of funding, and nobody is basically looking at this source of funding up till now. I hope so. There is also what I'm trying to say is like there is no dearth of fund. I mean, you can actually literally get funding from all these different sources. And of course, these are the projects that we're planning to do in the future. We are also talking with like application of technology, like IoT-based application in agriculture, maybe in like cattle, like we put sensors on cattle to basically track where they are, and also like the soil moisture and soil NPK sensors, which will be giving like real-time information about how what is the quality of the soil, because NPK is very critical because for any farming the fertilizers basically is composed of NPK, which is nitrous, phosphate and potash. If you use excess of it, it is not basically consumed by the plant, it basically flows away with the water. So it is very ideal in order for the soil to basically be able to survive long and not being contaminated by more fertilizers. So you put in the optimal amount which the plants need. So this we can basically start off thinking as one of the technologies, because India being a huge agricultural economy and huge agricultural society, there's a huge scope for agriculture and business ideas and startups which can work on agriculture and line and field of agriculture. So it's an open field, and I mean, not everybody is looking into it. So if you can come up with innovative technology, and there are so many people, so many farmers who are looking for innovative, some sort of a technology implementation, because up till now, we have all been using all the previous and very traditional technology, and which is not going to help us because we definitely have to increase the yield, we definitely have to increase the food production, and it is very vital for our economy. And of course, agriculture still contributes about 18% of India's GDP growth and employs about 65% of the entire population. So still it's a huge potential where we can basically look into. So we are trying to look into this as well, where we can basically support our farmers in terms of helping them increase the yield, or basically cattle farmers and fish farmers to increase their productivity. So these are the solutions we are working on. And of course, future tech still is there. I mean, agriculture, drone application in agriculture is still very much new. There are some companies in India who are actively working on it, and it's a huge potential as well. Programmable drone is the main thing, and you can basically right now able to assemble such drones and be able to program it to run. So imagine like the manual labor the farmer basically does, like putting fertilizers on the farm. It literally takes them days to basically put in those fertilizers on the farm. Like, for a drone, it's a matter of hours. So imagine if you can basically come up with a solution like this, you can basically give something like drone as a service. You basically use like half an hour, you basically put all those fertilizers on the field, you go to the next field, you charge money for it. So those kind of solutions we're also trying to come up with agriculture application on drone. And definitely, there are many more applications that we are working on. Some of the projects that we are looking into is like in partnership with fire department, especially for the government offices. I don't know if you heard a couple of days about like the IT department in Mumbai basically got burned down, which basically has very critical files for the Malayas and the guys who have basically out absconded from India. So government buildings are really in shambles right now. They are not basically taking care of the important critical files which are already there, like land revenue related files or medical records, things like that, which are very critical, and it's like one disaster away from basically burning down to ground. So we're coming up a solution with in partnership with Manipur Fire Department, where we are planning to install the smart sensors in every in government buildings, where they can basically pull in the data and be able to have like a centralized location whenever there's a early warning of a smoke or something, that the fire department will be given the first notification. So this was one solution we were very interested in. The other solutions would be like the illegal street parking. It's a big issue in India. Like any small town or big cities you go to, there's huge traffic issue. So we are talking to some company based out of Europe to basically supply this sort of like smart parking meters, smart parking sensors, which you can put on the ground and be able to monitor like if there is any illegal parking or things like that. Of course, there is the waste bin solution also. Like waste management is also a very big issue, and like waste littering is also a very big issue. So there are companies which basically have come up with smart sensors to monitor the volume, the quantity, feel, and the percentage feel of the different trash cans. So this is also another solution where like technology, like IoT-based technology, can be implemented in small towns and even like municipalities where waste is a big issue. So this is one. Another one is with asset tracking, maybe like ambulances and like different like buses within the community. And of course, like environment monitoring is one another solution. So, and this particular solution is we are getting a lot of traction on this one. This is related to people counter. It's literally very important, especially with the COVID situation right now. Like this technology basically helps you count a number of people, not by not using cameras, but using your mobile phones, and like be able to triangulate the information, like how many mobile phones are there, are basically clustered together in a particular area. You'll be able to see like how many people are there. So things like that are basically happening, and definitely at the end. Before I end this presentation, I just wanted to basically put in some final thoughts. The final thought I really want to put in is the best place to succeed is where you are with what you have. Literally, I mean, from my own personal experience, I've lived the American dream. I've seen like how corporations behave and how corporations work, and um, and of course, like working in major cities is also important. But what I'm trying to say is like based on my presentation, it's not really important for you to basically be going to this one of these major locations, like going to a major city or trying to chase after the American dream in order to be successful. I mean, you can literally start today. Look at your environment, look at your surrounding, where you are in your particular village, in your particular town. Literally, basically, start a business out there. There's so many problems to be solved in our local communities and local areas, which needs solutions. And if you basically give the solution, it may not be like a very robust solution. Even like small solution will change the lives of this many people, and you will definitely have a lot of avenue of making money as well. Like you don't really have to go to metro cities and big cities, work for a corporation and start making money. That's not exactly. I mean, you really don't have to do it. You can start looking in your own panchayat, in your own village, in your own surrounding, and there are so many problems to be solved, so many solutions you can come up with. It's up to you to figure out like what are the things, how can I basically solve this particular problem. So especially it is, I think, even more relevant with what is happening with the COVID situation right now. Like nobody's going to cities anymore, nobody's going to work, everything is being done online, and now the whole world is started connecting, and it becomes more relevant for you to start looking for projects, start looking for solutions in your own hometown. Why? Because it is advisable, at least for the next 1 or 2 years. It'd be very difficult. I mean, it is advisable that you don't go out from your hometown or basically go to a big city, because this COVID thing is going to continue for next 1 or 2 years. So we literally have to change ourselves. So literally, we have to start thinking about our local environment. We have to start thinking about how we can make the best use of what we have. So that's about it. That's my presentation, and we can basically do like a quick question and answer since we don't have many people right now. And definitely,
Yeah.
if any of you are interested in this technology, I mean, you can reach out to me. We can basically talk about how we can basically help you and your community basically come up with this solution. So you can send me an email. This is my contact information. Contact me and my email, and also like the company email is my phone number. So we can do like a quick question and answer. So not many people are here, so you can just shoot, ask me anything.
Yeah. So, sir, we already have a set of questions that was sent to me. So,
Hmm.
can you please see it from the chat?
Oh, chat, right? Okay, I'm in chat right now. Okay, so these are the questions you have. So what is the most important thing to keep in mind when starting a startup in India? So for doing so the most important thing is, I would say, before you start thinking about startup, start about finding problems. I think the solution to basically coming up with a startup idea is nothing but trying to find out the solution to a particular problem. It is relevant anywhere. It is relevant for even if you are in the United States, or even if you are in one of the metro cities, or even if you are in a small town. Once we basically started having an understanding of like how I can basically solve this particular problem differently by using technology as a platform. Technology is just a platform, just a medium by which you can solve the problem. So first, they start thinking about how do I basically come up with a solution for a particular problem, and how many people are basically feeling that problem. That's how you basically start off. So if enough people are basically feeling the same problem, you actually have the business case. You can start talking to people, you can start getting some feedback from the client, and start getting feedback from other friends and families as well if they face the same problem. So be in India, be in US, be in your own hometown. Start thinking about what problems we are facing and how do I solve those problems. Okay. So I hope I answered that question. So how does India retain the best talents in the future? So definitely, I'm telling you, the entire if you look at all the big CEOs and all the big corporations in the United States, it's all run by Indians. Literally, if these guys do not have H-1B visa holders in America, I think America will basically fall down the next day. We have the best of the talent. I'm telling you, we have the best of the talent. The only thing that I'm very much like not very happy with like our folks is like um, I don't know. It's a little bit different for other countries, but in India, we train the best people, and we basically go and chase after the American dream, and we look at those things like I can basically have a house over here, I build a car, and basically work for somebody and build my life and everything there. So I think that sort of a mindset is changing right now. I mean, lots of talented people are also coming back to India and trying to set up something and trying to build something. I think that's how we should be because, especially with what is happening in America, I mean, I do not want to make America great again. That's what Donald Trump says, right? I want to make India great again. So why don't we basically work for India? Why do we work for corporate America? If you go to America, I mean, you're anyway going there and stepping on somebody else's job because even the local people, there's so much of animosity with the local people there, right? They they really don't like H-1B visa holders. I mean, they say like we guys basically steal their job and things like that. So it's okay, man. I mean, getting the best of technology from there is fine, and but I think what is more important is like we should basically try to keep the talents in India. Show them like we have to basically build our own talent pool and we have to work on real problems, practical problems. So it's very important for us to focus on solving practical problems. So once we basically encourage more people to come back and solve local community, local area problems, I think that's when I think we can retain more talented folks from going to the United States and basically coming back here and serving our country rather than serving and making America great again. Right. So have you got any help from Indian government in terms of funding? So far, not really. We have, I mean, we like in those training sessions, we basically participated and we organized. We definitely got some funding from there, but we haven't sought any funding up till now. We are basically working on it though, not from the government, from other sources, but definitely. So right now, what we are focusing on is making our technology more robust and making it more user friendly and making it more like easier to use. So once we basically go through that path and we are able to have like a much more robust technology, that's when we basically look for funding later on. So which sector looks most promising in startup scene? So I feel most of the startups that we have, which we have in India right now, are the startups which are more of like a copycat, like from the United States. For example, any business idea like which are like the unicorn kind of a thing right now. Maybe like e-commerce and maybe Oyo and all these guys. They are basically copied from some business idea in the US, like Airbnb and things like that. But if you see at the growth, these basically startups will basically be only confined to mostly the urban area in India, in urban sector and urban area, where like only like 23 or 24% of the population resides. The rest of the 70%, like 70, 78% of the population basically resides in rural area, where the first thing is language is a big barrier. Not many people speak English, and most of these startups basically are based on English, right? So once you basically start looking at localizing your business idea, like for example, come up with a local language, like an app which basically has like a local language in it, it's going to gain much more traction because of the number of the sheer volume of people who speak that language, right? And more like solutions which are basically focused on local, like tier two and tier three cities. The solutions, if you're talking about like Airbnb and Oyo, those are relevant only in big metro cities, like maybe metro cities and tier one, maybe. So if you go beyond that, like tier two and tier three cities, those solutions becomes irrelevant. Because still, I mean, it's still coming. We don't have like Oyo and things like that in Nepal because the infrastructure is not that set up yet. So the idea is like basically if you start looking from ground up, look at the business idea which you can build right here in India, which solves the local problem, the local scenario, the problem faced by the second and third tier cities in India, the local people, right? That's when you basically start thinking about, okay, that's when you basically look at the big picture where you see like, okay, there's enormous scope here. Majority of people live in this particular area, and if you can solve some of the problems, then you will basically have like a startup which basically works, right? Uh, okay, so sector, which sector promising? Okay, guys, if you have question, please. Okay, which traits are most important for entrepreneurs? I think the most important trait for any entrepreneur is the never give up attitude. So, working for corporation, you just have to wait over the weekend. You can basically literally don't have to basically take much of responsibility. You're just given only like small portion of a big task. So, but that is not the case in after you become an entrepreneur. You really have to do everything by yourself. Starting off with like making your own business plan to basically making sure employees are basically paid on time, or they are basically learning what you're supposed to teach them. So the most important thing is you will be facing huge challenges as you become an entrepreneur, and the primary thing is the never give up attitude. You cannot give up. If you give up, I mean, the moment you give up, that's when basically things you don't become an entrepreneur. So no matter what happens, even if you basically hit the lowest of the bottom of the lowest bottom, if you do not give up and start working on some new business ideas or something, you can try to solve something. That's the most important thing. So how did you experience in Google and eBay help in running your own startup? So Google and eBay were very interesting, but it basically gave me an opportunity to work on a big portion, a small portion of a big company. So literally, uh, you but when you are basically thrown into the real world, when you basically uh, go down to be starting your own business, starting your own company, you do not use like much of these experiences you get from those corporations, because the corporation don't teach you in detail about like how you can basically handle a situation, like how do you meet with your customer, because you're just looking at one portion of the big picture, and you're supposed to finish this task, you're supposed to do this task and complete it. That's what people working in big corporations do. But if you start working, trying to build a company on your own, trying to build your own business, you have to be able to look at the bigger perspective, look at the big picture, and try to solve. You're going to be a salesman yourself. You're going to be the marketer yourself, and you're going to be facing all the challenges, different challenges. But as long as you don't basically give up and always keep on pushing yourself and learning new things, and always keep on doing giving your best every single day, definitely things will change. And that's the beauty of it. It's a journey which is very important. Like how do you make the best out of this journey? And it's a very exciting journey, also a very challenging one, but definitely a good journey. So I would say like a guy who is basically gone out of his way to start a company will have much more experience compared to a guy who has spent his entire life working for a corporation. This is how I feel. And it's for a fact, like somebody who is trying to start his company, he will have much more better experience compared to a person who is working for a corporation. Okay, so what is one advice you would want to give all the aspiring Indian entrepreneurs? So the one advice, not just is like the advice I wanted to give is very related to the theme of the presentation I basically given. It's like as long as you don't quit looking at and trying to figure out a solution to problems, you will never run out of ideas. So starting a business, if you don't have to really stick to one simple idea. Just try to figure out, like there are so many, like especially us, like in India, there are so many problems that needs to be solved. We are still a very developing country. There nothing is set in stone. There's so many things you can basically come up with, that if you start looking and paying attention to it, then you will definitely come out with that amazing business idea which is going to basically generate you millions. But The only thing, the most important thing is like start from where you are, start from any location where you are, and basically start looking at how things happen, and try to find out solution for problems. So that's the best advice I could give to the aspiring entrepreneur. So definitely, that's about it. Thank you very
Yeah.
much for giving me
Hey,
this opportunity.
Aeroshil,
Yeah.
Aeroshil, one more question. This is Bunty. Um, I also sometimes dream about going back to Imphal and start something like that. Um, but the experience I face here in the metro city is also like, resources and skills. But
Yep.
in Manipur, how do you face and how do you manage those resources? And obviously, you will get a lot of business. Definitely, I agree. Whatever you are doing, whatever you are presenting, they're excellent, awesome. And that is what Americans are also doing, right? They are also solving their local problems.
Mhm.
So that is the same thing I see here, and you're starting that in Manipur. So that is very interesting. But the skills, talents, the work culture, how do you manage those things?
Yeah, so that is definitely a big challenge. But I'm telling you, I mean, I have a very you won't believe the kind of people I have in my team right now. Right now I have a team of around only 6 people, like 5 to 6 people right now, and some of them are engineers, some of them are not engineers, some of them are mechanical engineers, and some of them are electronics engineers. But it's very surprising to see, like, if you give them the correct guidance. Like it took me literally some time, like maybe 3 to 4 years for me to train these guys. You have to start from scratch. You cannot basically expect these guys to basically come up and solve your problems directly. So it's like a learning process. Like I even right now, even today, I basically give them training exercises. I basically sign up training courses for them, whether it is like Udemy or any other courses. I would basically push them to basically be participate in all these different courses every time. And even if they have so many different background, and some of them came up with they have this passion already, and they really wanted to do something, but then generalizing those things are also very important, right? So if you basically come up with a plan by which you make sure that okay, this is the kind of like coming up with IoT is not so easy, because IoT is something where you need somebody who has an hardware knowledge, you need somebody who has networking knowledge, you also need somebody who has application and software development knowledge, and it's very difficult to find all this talent in a single person. So right now I'm still building the team, but if you start focusing on like solving a particular problem, right? We basically started off with how do we basically solve this problem for this farmer, right? So from there, when we started it, we basically focus on only those areas which we need to know. Like I did not have to basically teach my guys completely about hardware configuration and like hardware programming from the scratch. We just give them a problem. This is a problem. I just need to pull this data from this sensor to this particular dashboard, and you have to basically bring it anyhow. And I gave them a particular problem. This is how you solve it. So no matter what, even if they don't have much of an experience in hardware programming, they basically go out of their way and try to figure out themselves and come up with a solution. So that's how I feel, which is very effective, which has been very effective for now. So it's no way very, especially for small towns like us, it's difficult to find out resources which are already talented. You literally have to teach them from scratch. But the way you teach them, you can't teach them the entire syllabus. You teach them in such a way so that you basically work on practical solutions and ask them or do make them do things which are relevant for that particular problem. So that's how we were able to build an entire scratch from solution all the way from sensor. We were able to pull this data, push this data into the gateway, come up with a platform, use a network server, come up with an application server, and come up with a solution. But my guys are not, they are not very, they are not, what I would say is, they're not like complete hardware programmer guy or complete networking guy or complete application development guy, but they know what to be done for that scenario. So if you start off with that thing, like showing them like practically, you can literally solve this problem if you know this, and this particular portion, and show them literally, okay, this is how you solve it. That's when you basically start learning. And of course, it is going to be a learning exercise, learning curve. Like every single day, up till now, up till today, up till yesterday, I was doing training sessions for them. But you, as an entrepreneur, the guy who is basically running the business, you should know what is the big picture and what is the problem you want to solve. You don't want them to basically go away and basically do like an entire course on like PCB design by themselves, uh, when it is not very relevant for your particular project right now. So as long as you as an entrepreneur know exactly what needs to be done, what are the components I need to bring in to make this particular solution work, that's when you basically start having this building this skill set, like small skill set among your own team, where you basically start building a solution, coming up with an end-to-end solution. And from there, once they see the big picture, like you can literally solve this particular problem using this and this, they started expanding their knowledge by themselves. I mean, you don't have to do it. They start looking after it, they started researching it by themselves, and they started basically trying to solve the solution by themselves, trying to find a solution by themselves. So definitely, it's a big challenge, and definitely, I mean, you will always have this resource challenge. So, but it's more like building a team from scratch, but still, it's worth it. And if you're able to build this team from scratch, you know exactly like what are the capabilities of every member in your team, and you know what you can deliver. So what I would suggest is like you as an entrepreneur, don't try to teach everything because it's gonna bounce back from their head. Like, but if you give them specific tasks, like this is what you need to accomplish, they would come back and they would do it for you, and you would be surprised like how they are able to do it. They will come up with some solution, they would do it for you. So I hope it answers your question.
Yes, that answers, and that also tells me that you have done a whole lot of effort to bring up that team size, even a small size of 6 people, right? You are putting a lot of effort in that.
Correct, correct. So
Okay.
literally it's
Yeah.
like a learning curve, learning exercise every single day, and try to teach them from the scratch, and try to show them like the big picture, which is very important.
Okay.
So
Cool.
the
So are you
best things,
getting,
yeah,
yeah, are you getting those peoples from colleges or from,
yeah,
already
yeah.
experienced people?
These are from colleges. The
Okay.
guy who is the most experienced guy in my team is a 1 year experienced guy. So I picked them up right from colleges. So we have BCAs, and we have guys who have done like mechanical engineers can relate. He's my team lead right now. The guy who came back from mechanical engineering background. He's doing IoT right now. So he's kind of my team. I have another guy who has like a BCA, but he's doing PCB design right now. So
Mm-hmm.
it's pretty interesting how they pick up, how they learn in the process. But you, as a guy who is going to be like the main entrepreneur, the main guy who is going to lead the team, you need to you need to show them exactly what they need to do, and you need to have the big picture first. Like this is how I need this particular thing to be done, and for this thing I need this skill set. So if you pick and choose and make them complete that particular end-to-end scenario, so it's like learning programming language, right? So you can do as many coding, as many like theoretical programming language, you will never learn until you do a project. So when you start doing project, that's when you learn actual programming. So that's how things happen even in any technology, right? So once you basically go on the ground,
Mm-hmm.
the moment when the rubber meets the road, that's when I say you start learning automatically.
Cool. And you yourself is also doing all the sales.
Yes, in fact, yeah, I'm the guy who is doing the sales right now. And we have like I have another girl who is also helping out, but definitely it's like sales and marketing and everything by myself right now.
So the message to, yeah, yeah, please go ahead.
So, Aeroshil Manoj here. Yeah, so before coming into this, so you have, means whether you have any kind of thought process, like you would be starting something into IoT related uh, thing, or how exactly, means
So
how you,
it was, if you telling frankly, I actually do not have an IoT background. I will tell you frankly, I have a computer science engineering. The main technology I worked in was SAP. I worked as a business planning and consolidation, like budgeting forecasting consultant when I was in the US. But I would say literally it was the R&D that we did in terms of like application. Like I said, like we have to choose one of the emerging technologies, right? But not just choosing the emerging technology, you have to start thinking about like what is the application of this technology in my local area or in my society, or how can I basically apply this technology. That's when he basically started doing more research and started figuring out like what is the most relevant technology we can apply. So as I mentioned earlier, like how did we come about using LP1 as one of our basic technologies? Because I never heard about LP1 before. But going into different seminars and talking to different, like looking at various presentations, I even took an opportunity to basically go to some of the conferences for IoT, and everybody was talking about this technology. That's when we basically started looking at like how it will basically help. And it basically was very relevant for remote areas and communities which are like remotely located. That's when he basically chose the technology. So technology came later on. So what I'm trying to say is technology was something that we basically figure out later on. It was basically used as just a medium. But what we mainly focus on trying to see the situation and trying to solve the problem first. And what is the best technology fit that we can put in this particular scenario? That's how we basically started. So in fact,
Okay.
frankly, I don't have any technology. I don't have IoT background. I learned IoT in the process. And I learned about this LP1 technology in the process.
Great, great, great.
So I
Thanks for
have
the answer.
hope I have answered all your guys' questions. So yeah, so that's about it. Thank you very much, Albert, for giving me this opportunity and like sharing some of my thought process. And we are also in the learning phase, and I hope more and more people start working on their startup idea right from their home and right from their locality and try to solve problems for the locality. I think that's how we will build like a robust solution, especially for our country, like for India, where we don't have to basically depend on big foreign powers, and we don't have to basically depend on this like big corporations from outside and build and be part of this the fourth industrial revolution. I mean, the fourth industrial revolution is all about green technology, about doing sustainable living and sustainable thinking and things like that. So there is a lot of scope for us. I think there's a lot of things that we can do in this particular field, and I hope you guys also start figuring out and start doing things in your local area so that it basically impacts the people around you. So thank you, everyone.
Thanks. Thanks, Aeroshil. Lots
Yeah,
of things to be learned from you. Lots of
yeah,
things I
perfect.
have learned.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Albert. Thanks,
Thank you.
Aeroshil.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Thank
Albert.
you,
Thank you,
sir.
everyone, for joining in. Thank you.